Yeah, well, I can't wait to get into the action. Can you, Adam?
No, I just want to see them play it out.
All right, well, let's do that. Let's go ahead and jump right into game number 1 between these two phenomenal players, Juan, Naar, and Nick Navarre. As we will see Nick go ahead and set up with that Venusaur and that Grimmsnarl, a Grim Pokemon that we've gotten a chance to see on many, many teams through the Global Finals. But Juan kicking it right off with the weather on the field with that Kingdra and that Politoed.
I think this might be one of the first times we've actually seen Juan lead the Politoed and Kingdra together.
Yeah.
It's something that he usually kind of keeps apart, maybe available for switching a little bit later. And it looks to me like he wants this Kingdra just to take over the game as soon as possible. Of course, Kingdra does have quite a good answer to this potential Venusaur with the Hurricane becoming the max airstream. But the Grimmsnarl can slow it down. It has options to reflect and light screen and just respond to a very offensive team. And I think Nick could put himself in a really good position by using these screens and getting these set up and basically trying to waste some of the turns of Dynamax maybe that Juan wants to use. He goes for it right away, just straight off the bat, committing to Dynamaxing this Kingdra, and that's something that he is well aware of how to play through, something he does often with this team because it sets its own weather, it sets up speed release, it can just do so much really in those turns.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the Politoed come back out, but it's very, very possible that Nick does have that Torkoal that is in the back. But look at this. It's going to be a Dynamax match, a Dynamax apiece on both sides of the field, where you saw that Kingdra get the Dynamax factor, but it's time for Venusaur to go ahead and Gigantamax here. And that's actually really exciting to see in the very beginning of this match. I wasn't expecting to see these Dynamaxes so early.
This Venusaur is going to take the field and just kind of say, well, I'm going to get defense boost from my partner Grimmsnarl. With that in mind and the additional health from Gigantamaxing, I'm pretty sure I can take these hits, and I'm pretty sure I can start firing back as well. So Venusaur there, taking that like an absolute champ. Of course, giving over the speed boost to the Kingdra, but not getting knocked out and being able to take that, being given the opportunity to fire back is absolutely key here.
Yeah, but that means that Venusaur can go for this G-Max Vine Lash right into the Kingdra. Look at that. They basically trade the same amount of damage to each other, but the big difference now is that you do have the residual damage coming through from the G-Max Vine Lash.
Oh, of course, and the Vine Lash is going to start adding up on these Pokemon. Really, really important to make sure that it gets there. That said, Celesteela's taken the field, and that is a Pokemon that could slow the game down, particularly against these two that it's kind of staring down. An interesting choice here from Juan. We'll talk about it a little bit more in the turn. But he's decided this Grimmsnarl might be something he's particularly not a fan of.
Yeah, maybe the Grimmsnarl getting a chance to set up yet more screens, or potentially predicting that Nick might have like a switch in there. It's a really safe bet for Juan right now, I feel like, to kind of go for those moves and go for that specific slot, especially looking at how much damage was done in that first turn. But Grimmsnarl protects here. Oh my goodness.
Wow, this Grimmsnarl's about to take up a whole lot of time. And actually, it's just a double protect over on Nick's side of the field. Trying to kind of see what Juan's doing and maybe try and get a read on what Juan thought Nick was doing, right? Like, he doesn't quite know if he's predicting a switch. He's kind of shown it a little bit there by double targeting into the Grimmsnarl. And that's now something he can take away and also just rack up this residual damage from the Vine Lash's ferocious beating, which, even though it doesn't look like much, it certainly starts to add up.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, Celesteela at this point can recover a little bit of that health by its leftovers that it's holding on to, but is it time now to continue to go after this Venusaur after seeing that the Max Guard came out here? You saw that both Pokemon did use a protective move in that last turn, so Juan's kind of free right now to be able to choose whatever target he wants.
He's making some big decisions here, and I think the way he's targeting is relying on this switch. This switch could be huge if it's the right one, and he's wanted the Torkoal to be coming in. I'm very certain of it, based on what his Celesteela went for.
Oh yeah, you saw, so something that's really interesting about that Celesteela is the fact that it is packing Flamethrower, but Kingdra's not going to get a chance to move because of that Chlorophyll ability on Venusaur getting activated from the sun coming through from Drought. Torkoal's ability Venusaur's going to move the fastest on the field despite those speed boosts that came through. But Celesteela goes for Flamethrower, but it's not enough to knock out this Venusaur.
Oh, no way. It's not anywhere near enough, and Celesteela not known for its offensive prowess. So, yes, it does get the benefit of the sun from the Torkoal, the switch I think he might have been looking for the turn before by Max Vortexing and trying, or Max Geysering, my apologies, and trying to set the rain up immediately on the switch in. But this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier, where Entei could kind of come in and take advantage of the sun that Torkoal has set up. I mean, it is going to get a little weird when Politoed comes in and takes that away. But this Torkoal-Venusaur combination is on the field. Venusaur's taking a good amount of damage and is going to be able to try and capitalize, of course, off the chlorophyll ability.
Juan, considering switching back in that Politoed to reset the weather, I feel like that would be a really good decision to make, just to maybe get a chance to stop that Torkoal from doing too much. But at the same time, Juan does have the Entei on the field now, which means that this Entei could potentially take advantage of the weather that's there. So it's a tough call to make.
There's a lot of big decisions to make. You have to start looking for this potential endgame with Celesteela as well. It's something a lot of players are obviously very aware of and still have recurring nightmares about from previous formats. But there's plenty of options on how to play through this one, and Nick showing another one that his team has available to him by bringing in the Dusclops here and showing that, hey, you are probably going to be quicker than my Torkoal, and if you want to take Torkoal's rain away, that's fine. Or sun away, replacing it with the rain, that's fine. But I'm just going to let it play in the Trick Room. And worse for this Torkoal's setting up a pretty nasty endgame here.
Yeah, oh my goodness. I just got really excited about the fact that Nick had the Dusclops switch in for the extreme speed coming out from Juan's Entei to be able to just completely stop it. But yeah, this is such an interesting position to be in, because Nick now has set up these yawns from this Torkoal, and so Juan's kind of in this position where you let this Politoed go to sleep, you have to switch in. This puts a lot of momentum in Nick's favor, because now he can kind of choose what he wants to do here. Do you go after the Entei, do you with another yawn, or do you kind of predict the fact that Celesteela is going to be coming back in?
The yawn plays really create some nasty mind games, and we've seen it before where trainers always try and switch out their yawn Pokemon and they just get caught for doing that every single time as they bring something in. Particularly now when you know exactly what it is coming in, you're just able to capitalize on that and push on a little bit. So it's a tough old decision, this Entei. Fishing with the Sacred Fire here, definitely not for the damage, maybe for some of the other effects, but Dusclops freely manages to set up its Trick Room, and that means that, you know, the Torkoal could be coming in later, and if the Torkoal can come in and get control of the weather safely, maybe when the Politoed's already shown on the field, then it would be in a really good position to capitalize. There's obviously a lot of forward planning going into this game from both trainers, the Politoed switching out, so it is able to shut down that Torkoal a little bit later, but for now it's really a case of just try and weave in the damage where you can, try and land the best ball position you can when you can.
This is going to be a tough one and a long one, it feels like, just because of the fact that you've got Celesteela on the field that can also set up for a lot of this end game as well, with the Leech Seeds that we just got a chance to see Juan select, and now Politoed coming back out. It's just going to be a lot of reposturing and figuring out exactly what kind of board position you want to have for the end game, and both of these players navigating the situation really beautifully. Also, look at this. This is something that I was really waiting to bring up, but Dusclops on Nick's team is not only one of in the entire global finals, but also has Bind as its known move.
This is going to be a slow game, I think, with lots of residual damage going down between turns, lots of things being set up, binds, leech seeds,
yawns,
leftovers, just so many little bits of damage between turns, and this is something that a lot of players have been talking about, I think, throughout these global finals when we've seen Bind come through. Is obviously Dusclops has a plethora of support moves it can pick from, and if Bind's the one that gets you those little extra bits of damage to open up the doors for those knockouts, that's exactly what you need. But while you're doing residual damage with Bind, of course Leech Seed is landing and doing little bits of residual damage there, and of course healing. So both trainers, got to be careful. There's no way I think either of them can go for a really big, maybe a quick knockout. right now, but definitely not with these 4 Pokemon on the board, and just have to be conscious of that. I mean, talking of little bits of damage, there's a Nightshade, pretty consistent on how much it does.
And then the Heavy Slam to follow up from the Celesteela into the Dusclops. It's not going to do very much, though, as Grimmsnarl goes for this Spirit Break into the Politoed. Brings it so low, but just not enough.
It's not enough for the knockout there, but we do have residual damage to land every single time. The Politoed firing back with a larger hit, I guess, there. The Hydro Pump in the rain doing a little bit more, but not the biggest. Of course, there's still screens in play from earlier, and that's something we have to remember when we look at these kind of underwhelming bits of damage between turns. The Celesteela, though, not taking much damage, and the bind will get it. Will get the knockout on this Politoed.
Yeah, isn't that this is gonna leave Juan with his last 2 Pokemon here. Entei in the rain doesn't really feel like a fantastic position for this Entei to really be in, but it still has access to things like Sacred Fire, Stone Edge, and Extreme Speed that can still do a significant amount of damage here. But I really like the setup that Juan has created throughout this game, which is just Celesteela getting a chance to Leech Seed, as well as just cycle through those Protects and make sure that it is still very, very healthy for this end game.
It's certainly not the easiest position to be in. I mean, you've got... The rain is really good for the Celesteela, but really bad for the Entei's damage output. Of course, when the Torkoal comes in a little bit later, then it's going to be different. It's going to be really good time for the Entei to land big hits and do huge damage. Then you've got the Venusaur that could come in and take advantage of it with the Chlorophyll ability, and then the Celesteela's in a little bit of trouble. So Nick does, of course, have all 4 of his Pokemon remaining and is able to try and reposition that way. It looks like Torkoal's coming in now, getting rid of the rain once and for all. Obviously, can't be reset now that the Politoed's been knocked out. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on the Celesteela to try and kind of burn through the end of this game and maybe bring things a little bit closer. As Dusclops getting nice and healthy again with a really big pain split.
Yeah, Sacred Fire now coming up from Entei was really hoping to be enough to be able to knock out this Dusclops. And yet again, we're not seeing the secondary effect of that Sacred Fire come through. No burn onto this Dusclops, but it still has that Leech Seed, so it's still within knockout range from another Sacred Fire.
Oh, most certainly. And Dusclops does have to be careful, and it also needs to do things other than Pain Split. And Pain Split becomes less valuable as the game goes on and everything gets low, right? And you've got less to divide between the 2 of them. So you have the options to maybe Pain Split your partner Pokemon, but then leave that vulnerable. There's all kinds of crazy options with it, but it does lose a little bit of value as things go. Especially when this Entei can deal big damage. The sun is now set up. Of course, there's still a screen Reflect in its way, causing some problems there. And this Celesteela landing another Protect could be huge for Juan maybe getting a knockout here.
Yeah, oh my goodness. That's going to just be a double Protect from Juan to be able to keep things safe as the Pain Split tries to come through from the Dusclops, but it's not able to. And Juan now targeting down that Celesteela. So now Juan has all this information at his disposal to be able to kind of say, okay, Nick recognizes this Celesteela is going to be a threat. But the other thing about this double Protect that's really important is now the Trick Room is over. Now Juan's Pokemon are the fastest on the field.
He manages to get through the Trick Room with that double Protect. Really good game planning there from Juan, and something that could maybe try and get him back into this game. I mean, the longer that Nick sits on the field not doing huge amounts of damage is time that Celesteela can set up, time that he can burn through this potential use of the sun. And no Trick Room and an Entei on the field could be a really good time. Of course, Stone Edge, huge amount of damage. And there's no more kind of Dynamaxing available for these trainers. I don't know if you remember, but they used them right at the beginning of the game. So those are already gone. Those are already out of the equation. And it looks to me like Juan's definitely looking to set up the classic, the Celesteela endgame.
Yeah, the classic brings me way back, doesn't it? But Stone Edge going into the Torkoal here, a Heavy Slam now onto the Dusclops to be able to just deal that last bit of damage there. So now we're finally getting a chance to see a Pokemon knocked out on Nick's side. But wow, Beast Boost also activating for Celesteela.
Beast Boost getting the defenses up. I don't know if that's going to be so important against the combination Torkoal, Venusaur as your damage dealers. Might help a little bit against the Grimmsnarl. But look at the damage. I think something that's important to note when we talk about Nick's team, just how much value he's been getting out of these Reflects and Light Screens. Just the amount of knockouts that have been avoided. I mean, Entei should have been doing probably a chunk more damage to that Torkoal, but the use of Reflect earlier on from that that Grimmsnarl just says no, and if there's a screen he wants to set up for later, he can do it right now by bringing the Grimmsnarl back in. The Grimmsnarl is, of course, very, very healthy as well.
Still sitting at pretty much full HP. And that just means that Nick can continue to really set up for his own endgame, which is going to be just making sure those screens are active and keeping a lot of their Pokemon safe. Like, yeah, you're right. Look at how little damage that Stone Edge kind of did to that Torkoal. It's still sitting at like 3/4 of its HP. It's still very much healthy and ready to be able to fire off these attacks. But Juan is still playing this game very safe.
He's just trying to find the advantages where he can. And of course, Stone Edge connecting once again, still doing not enough damage. And even worse, activating Torkoal's Berry right there. So the Torkoal looking pretty much as healthy as it was before this turn. And even though Entei's going to sleep at the end of the turn, Nick's Grimmsnarl making sure, you know what, I'm going to pop some damage down on you first and lower those stats a little bit.
Ooh, Flamethrower now going in. And maybe Juan hoping that would be enough to be able to get the knockout there, but that Citrus Berry activating was definitely not what Juan was hoping for. And a critical hit onto Entei here. It's now just Celesteela against the world, Adam.
Yeah, Celesteela's got a lot of work to do, and against a Torkoal as well, is certainly going to, I think, be a bit of an ask for it. But if there's a Pokemon that can pull off crazy long, drawn-out comebacks, I'd argue that it's probably going to be something like the Celesteela. And both trainers are just being safe about what they want to do. Maybe try and read into what their opponent's doing a little bit. As Torkoal, tries to weave in that yawn. And at some point, that Celesteela's going to go to sleep. That Celesteela's going to get caught. But at least the sun's gone now. So the Torkoal's damage output may be reduced a little bit.
Just a little bit. Leech Seed now can come out from Juan pretty safely here. Especially after using that Protect. You kind of have to go for some sort of damaging move. So interesting to see Nick switch out the Grimmsnarl for the Venusaur.
Well, this is going to make the Celesteela endgames that we talk about a little bit harder, actually, because Leech Seed, we want it to stick. Obviously, Leech Seed, you can only be targeting certain things on Nick's team, and with that in mind, and the fact he still has an extra Pokemon available that he can switch into, he is able to kind of break free of these Leech Seeds pretty consistently, and oh no, Reflect's gone, but it's done so much work in this game. So I'd say Nick in a very advantageous position. I mean, the Celesteela isn't the easiest thing to knock out, particularly, the Torkoal though could set up, or could switch out, set up the Sun, and now that the Torkoal has been seeded, we see it switching out for the Grimmsnarl, and this makes the game so much harder for the Celesteela.
Yeah, Leaf Storm coming out from Venusaur here. We'll see that it does very, very little damage, especially when it's not going to be super effective. And Venusaur, I feel like, took more damage than what it actually did to the Celesteela in some ways. But Heavy Slam comes through onto the Grimmsnarl that switched in. And what a fantastic read for Juan. Recognizing, hey, if Torkoal wants to get rid of this Leech Seed, it's gotta switch out here, which means that Grimmsnarl is the only Pokemon that can come in, and it's gonna have to take that hit.
Yeah, I mean, the Celesteela's going to sleep, which is not exactly what it wants to do. It needs to keep setting up and needs to keep playing out for the end game. It's not really threatened by the Venusaur, but this Torkoal coming back in, getting control of the weather again with the Drought ability, could kind of just spell the end, I think, for this Celesteela, particularly while it's sleeping. It needs to wake up as soon as possible and try and get that down. The Venusaur, though, if it does wake up, looks like it's going to be the recipient of a flamethrower as soon as the Celesteela does. And we can take a look at just how limited the damage options are for this Venusaur. As its special attack keeps getting lower, maybe it's going to knock itself out with the Life Orb Recoil.
That's what I was saying. I think Life Orb Recoil is actually doing more. But Burning Jealousy now coming out here, and whoa, that's a lot of damage. And that's exactly why you were saying before, those Beast Boosts for that defense doesn't really matter when you're in the face of two special attackers like this Torkoal and this Venusaur. This Torkoal is definitely a threat, and that's something that Juan is going to have to be very conscientious of in order to win this game. But we saw that timer pop up, so a lot of these commands are coming in quickly here to try to seal up this game.
Yeah, you've got to play through the endgame as soon as possible. This Venusaur's not the concern. He just needs to get after this Torkoal as soon as possible. And Celesteela waking up here, trying to deal some damage back. I mean, this Torkoal is very low. It set up the Sun. Oh, no!
It's out! It actually got knocked out here!
Oh my goodness, a critical hit flamethrower on the Torkoal in the sun. I'm not sure if that's enough, and that's not the traditional Celesteela endgame, but oh my, how has he done that? This Venusaur can't attack him again. He'll get knocked out to his own life orb. My goodness.
Wow, this is not the end game that we were expecting, especially because I think that just did 2 damage, and Venusaur knocks itself out before the timer even expires. Okay, Adam, honestly, I am speechless about the whole end game that we just saw. Like, what the heck? I never thought we were actually going to see flamethrower critical hit from Celesteela come out of our mouths.
In the sun. Don't forget, it was also in the sun.
In the sun.
To boost that damage output. I really don't know what to say. We talked about it so much in the game, and how you have to go through all the motions and set up your Celesteela, and Juan kind of threw caution to the wind. It's something I've said before. You've got to buy a ticket to win the raffle, and he said, my only endgame win condition is knocking out the Torkoal before it lands another Burning Jealousy on me. The best chance I have to do that is the flamethrower from my own Celesteela, which we saw much earlier in the game do an underwhelming amount of damage. So he bought that one ticket, and he definitely won the raffle there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like the end game looks very different if also Celesteela doesn't wake up on that turn number 1 and you just don't get that critical hit. But it's what happens, and sometimes that's just what happens in the game of Pokemon. And I don't know about you, Adam, but I gotta see how this game number 2 ends, so I feel like we should just go ahead and jump right into it.
I think Nick's going to have to bounce back very quickly from that, and obviously they play these games thick and fast. He's going to have to immediately forget about what's just happened and just go again. That's all you can do in this situation, you know. G yourself up and get right back into it. And a change in lead, maybe that kind of fresh start he needs.
Yeah, so we're seeing this interesting lead change up from both of these players. You've got Nick with the Grimmsnarl and the Torkoal, which is a little bit different than that game number 1. And then Juan also changing things up. In fact, not even bringing the Kingdra to this matchup, but Entei and Raichu to kick things off.
Well, the Kingdra got knocked out quite early last game, and it didn't put in as big a shift as some of the other Pokemon on his team, so why bring it? Maybe he thinks that the Raichu being able to slow things down, land some nuzzles as well, and cause chaos that way is a preferred option for his team. So a lot of interesting decisions from both trainers being made between these games, and of course the Politoed switch in here to deny Torkoal free reign while it has access to its drought. I mean, free reign. Something you don't get in the rain, obviously. So, some phenomenal wordplay from myself there. But this Raichu is the Dynamaxer. Hold on.
What? I was laughing at what you said, and then I started laughing because I was like, it's Dynamax Raichu?
Question mark? Again, I'll pull out my bingo card of Pokemon I've seen Dynamax during the Players' Cups, and this was not one that I already
not
had
on the
filled
card.
in. It's not something we had ready, but Raichu with the Max Lightning, here we go!
Oh, I mean, okay, I really like this, though, from Juan, just because, yeah, okay, Max Lightning, it's not doing very much damage, but it's one way to set up the terrain so that Torkoal can't just yawn things anymore.
It does take away one of those big options, actually, from, of course, the yawn was problematic, until, of course, Celesteela wakes up immediately, but a lot of interesting choices there. The damage output will be going up now a little bit, too, because, you know, it's getting a little bit more down with the control of the terrain, which is something Juan doesn't really have available on his side, but to respond to that, Grimmsnarl is just going to set up a light screen.
Yeah, light screen is going to do a lot, especially against this special attack. But wow, Torkoal takes a lot of damage from that Max Lightning. Goes all the way down to its Citrus Berry, so will be able to bring itself back up to about 3/4 of its health. But Politoed does go for the Ice Beam now into the Torkoal, which is still not doing as much damage. I feel like that Citrus Berry definitely helped to bring that Torkoal up to a net positive there.
Well, also, I think he's hoping that Torkoal becomes a Venusaur, right? The
Yeah.
Torkoal realizing that it needs better control of the weather and becomes a Venusaur by switching out, and then this big Ice Beam lands and the Venusaur is so low on health, Dynamaxing it later in the game is not the preferred option. But the Torkoal looking pretty healthy after taking 2 big attacks. The help of the light screen, really important there from the Grimmsnarl, and something that I think Nick is going to be leaning on for a little bit with the Grimmsnarl. I mean, it can set up a Reflect if it wants, but right now there's nothing threatening that side of the field that requires the Reflect, so maybe it could weave in some damage with something like the Spirit Break on its side and try and help out there. But we do get to finally reveal all 4 of Juan's Pokemon. Of course, Celesteela given another chance to, put in a big shift like it did the last time.
It 1v3'd last time. It may as well do it again. Definitely considered the MVP of that game number 1. But in this situation, Nick is still able to set up the Reflect as well before the Grimmsnarl takes yet another Max Lightning, this time doing a lot more damage. But the Dynamax is over now for Juan, where Nick still has that tool in their back pocket.
This has to be one of the most underwhelming Dynamaxes I've ever seen. I mean, the presence of Grimmsnarl does that to Dynamax Pokemon that aren't these monster hitters. Like, Raichu is usually just used for fake out Snuzzles and just controlling the board a little bit, rediverting electric-type attacks with the Lightning Rod as well. And that Dynamax just wasn't that impressive to me. Something that Nick, when he finally decides to use his Dynamax on whatever Pokemon he has here, there is, of course, a 4th Pokemon we haven't seen yet. That could be the Venusaur, it could be something entirely different. It was Venusaur in Game 1. But if he decides to do that, I think it could be a wholly different game. And we talk about dealing damage. I mean, this Raichu losing its special attack, doesn't need it as much now, but the Grimmsnarl has done some really good work in the turns it's been on the field. In exchange for that, it does get knocked out, though.
Yeah, it is going to go down, but not after getting up the light screen, the Reflect, as well as getting off that Spirit Break damage. And this is a free switch in now for something else that can take advantage of the Trick Room that Nick just set up.
And this should kind of give us a good indication of what I think the 4th Pokemon is. There it is, the Glastrier. I was suspecting he was going to look at it. He had a Trick Room mode and then only Torkoal to take advantage of it. Of course, the Venusaur wasn't the most useful, particularly in the end game last game. So it just made sense to see him switch something up and particularly setting up that Trick Room there on the turn that he knows his Grimmsnarl could go down. He's set up the perfect situation for this Glastrier. He's got Light Screen, he's got Reflect, so nothing can hit it super effect, or for maximum damage rather, for the next couple of turns. He's got a Trick Room set up for it, and now this Glastrier is something that could be the real focal point Dynamaxer of Nick's team in this game. Raichu has done its bit, will be leading the field.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely looking at that Glastrier right now as just the perfect Dynamax candidate. Color me surprised if it ends up being that Dusclops on the field. I'm just going to go ahead and throw my bingo card out the window if that's the case. But it is that Glastrier taking advantage of the Trick Room, as well as those reflected light screens that got set up from that Grimmsnarl just a couple of turns ago. And I feel like Nick is in such an advantageous position right now because he has all 3 turns of Dynamax, and he's also going to go ahead and get some chip damage in with these binds.
Yep, he's going to keep the Politoed there and keep it taking a little bit of damage. Glastrier, though, trying to set up for itself. Following up, Max Knuckle doing a lot, and most importantly, I think, getting an attack boost there. Those combination of Max Knuckle attack boost and Chilling Naze do start to add up. I mean, it's very difficult to stall out the game, even with, Protects and Leech Seeds.
Protect, Leech Seed, Protect, Leech Seed. That's kind of what we're going to see here coming out from the Celesteela, but it worked last time in game number 1. Oh, Politoed just barely hanging on from the bind, too.
Just clinging on there, and the Politoed, end of this turn is done for. And now maybe this Glastrier wants to kind of refocus its attention a little bit and say, you know what? Time for me to switch out. Time for me to... keep going there. This Celesteela is definitely in a little bit of danger right now, looking down this Glastrier with nothing set up to help out there.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do here, too? What's the main damage on the team? Is it going to have to be that Entei that's going to be preserved for a little bit later? You certainly can't bring it out now, especially when you know that Glastrier is running something like high horsepower. Also a white herb. That's an interesting item choice for this Pokemon.
Oh, most definitely. Celesteela avoiding the attack there. Celesteela does decide to stay in, and I like this play, actually, from Nick, just making sure he gets a huge amount of boosts in one turn. This Glastrier, for its final turn of Dynamax, is going to be an absolute terror.
Ooh, Glastrier getting that chilling Nay boost again. But Celesteela going for the flamethrower, though. So this is why I bring up the white herb, because you know that Glastrier is one of those types of Pokemon that would really, really like to have the weakness policy. It's super, super bulky. It's also a great heavy attacker, and you get a chance to just dish out tons of damage in that way. But this one's carrying a white herb, so that means that Juan can be safe to go for those super effective attacks like that flamethrower into the Glastrier, because you know you're not going to proc an accidental weakness policy.
Yeah, knowing about that definitely helps out his decision making, but it doesn't increase the amount of damage it does there. And
that's true.
Kind of sat there trying to do what it can, but not getting the requisite amount of damage. I think the Entei is probably going to be a little more reliable when it comes to dealing that damage, but again, it's still got to worry for a few more turns at least about this combination of Light Screen and Reflect that's just sitting on the field, just keeping those Pokemon very, very safe on Nick's side, and meaning these games are a little bit slower because the damage output is just so much lower when it goes to Juan, which in some games he's just been able to steamroll through, but he's not able to do that in the face of Light Screen and Reflect.
Yeah, I mean, it mitigates so much of the damage output that you're able to do. And especially when Celesteela is kind of rotating through, attacking, protecting, Nick has very limited options to be able to kind of pick and choose a target here. And this double protect coming through is really intelligent, because you're not only kind of figuring out what Nick wants to target down here, but you're also mitigating a lot more of the damage that could be coming through from those max moves.
Well, and also you're getting through the last turn of the Dynamax here, making sure that it doesn't start to cause problems. But the max move does get a little bit of damage down, and we've talked plenty about residual damage in these games. There's a little bit more for everyone on the field. Of course, the Hail doing a little bit of chip damage. Not as much as something like the Vine Lash that we got to look at in game number 1, but it's all going to add up. It's all going to help out a little bit when it comes to securing these knockouts, and you want things brought lower so it's in range to get knocked out by Chilling Neigh, or by an attack that will activate Chilling Neigh, my apologies. The Leech Seed obviously going around. Celesteela trying to set up for another one of its phenomenal sweeps at the end of the game here in this. Now it's not Dynamax, there is a little more room to try and deal with this Glastrier, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Glastrier still has the option to protect in the situation, so if Nick reads this correctly and goes for something like a protect or even switch here, I think that's really, really good for Nick to be able to set himself up for the rest of the game, because that means that Dusclops can continue to go for what it needs to, maybe with those Nightshades to get some trip damage, or the Binds to be able to keep some of these Pokemon in. So I really like that setup.
Dusclops is going to be putting in a shift, I think, to try and make sure that everything's safe for its partner Pokemon, and making sure that it always has premium targets to attack. Bind on the Celesteela, not very effective, but trying to help out a little bit there as Glastrier doesn't even bother. It's already got enough boosts. See you later, Entei. I don't want to get caught by a Sacred Fire.
Yeah. I think that was a really smart move by Nick to be able to go for the close combat there into the Entei. Gets another Chilling Neigh boost, so who cares about the stat drops anymore when you still have that high attack stat, as Celesteela does go for the Flamethrower into the Glastrier, but yeah, not doing very much.
It does get burned, though. Ooh, that's huge. I mean, it cuts some of the boosts that this Glastrier has got now. Don't forget it's 2 Max Knuckles, 2 Chilling Neighs. So it's 4 stages of increased attack, so it's still going to be above what it normally should be, but it now makes this Glastrier so much more manageable. It's burned, it's Leech Seeded, and that's something that the Celesteela may look to do when it comes to stalling it out, protecting and just letting these residual bits of damage rack up between every turn. The Celesteela back to full health, and yes, the bind is going to start adding up, but the Trick Room's also over now as well.
Mm-hmm. That means that Raichu can come back out here. You still have Celesteela on the field to be able to do some shenanigans. But I still feel like Nick is in a bit more of a commanding position. Still has that Pokemon advantage with the Torkoal in the back as well. Still has a Dusclops that's at pretty full health, and you can set up the Trick Room again.
Of course, the Dusclops could set up perfectly for a Torkoal, and that's that's what I think you may have to look to do now. This Glastrier is getting dangerously low, but it is now 2 versus 3, and the Dusclops isn't easy to knock out. It's not super easy for either Celesteela or Raichu to just work through it. Glastrier being very, very wise here. Yes, it's going to take a good bit of residual damage between turns, but if it gets one more turn in Trick Room to attack, that could swing the game in Nick's favor. That's all he's going to need in these situations.
Heavy Slam from Celesteela. You already got a chance to see the Thunderbolt from Raichu go into the Protect from the Glastrier, but all for naught as that Trick Room does continue to get set up here by Nick.
The Trick Room setup basically makes the Raichu useless. There's nothing that this Raichu can do for the rest of the game. It's not going to be afforded any further opportunities to kind of attack, I don't think. Of course, it still needs more than a Nightshade to get knocked out. We can see exactly how much health it has. But it does mean this Glastrier has one more opportunity to attack before all the residual damage comes through. And knowing about the Raichu on one side of the field, you know that it doesn't have Protect. It's something that players do get to learn about in this open team sheet format. The light screen's finally gone, so there's a little bit of information. Those flamethrowers may hurt more, but this Raichu shouldn't be able to protect, and this Glastrier could just deal with that and then allow the Torkoal to come in, complete control of the weather, just go after this Celesteela.
Yeah, those light screens and reflects are going to be staying on the field for a little bit longer just because Grimmsnarl and Nick's side of the field was holding that light clay to be able to extend the length of those screens. But Dusclops goes for the pain split now. Not going to be able to do too much here, but anything right now is better than nothing to be able to try to deal with the Celesteela, as we do see that Glastrier finally get a chance to knock out that third and final Pokemon for Juan, leaving that Celesteela again to maybe do the 1v3. Again.
It's up to you, Celesteela. You get the chance to do it again. Double Leech Seed down now, so that's kind of part 1 that you need. You need to have double Leech Seeds up, and he will be able to consistently double Leech Seed throughout all of this endgame. But this Dusclops is going to be able to Pain Split for quite some time. With Celesteela adding health back every single turn with leftovers and double Leech Seed, the Dusclops is going to be more than fine to just take a good chunk of that away every single time. With a little bit of bind help as well, it keeps it a little more manageable. But Glastrier slowly being whittled down. The Leech Seed does it. And there's another knockout for Juan, but now he's against a Torkoal in the sun, and he's not in the perfect position for the Celesteela. And the Torkoal won't be benefiting from Reflect anymore. That's also gone. But it's got to be thinking that it wants to make up for what happened at the end of last game.
Yeah, it definitely wants its revenge for sure. Drought coming through now to be able to reset the weather on the field for the final time in this game, as it is going to be Dusclops and Torkoal left on the field. Juan really is only kind of in a position where I feel like he can only protect and kind of cycle through the Leech Seeds and hope that he's able to withstand some of the pressure coming through from this Torkoal.
Celesteela's just going to protect, maybe try and buy time to get through the Trick Room, which may help it out a little bit. But Dusclops is immediately going on the offensive here, making sure it gets little chunks of damage down. Torkoal trying to get some status effects down to make up for the burns and the paralysis that have been on Nick's side of the field. And the Celesteela is going to really try and grind this game out. It's a long old road, I think, for Celesteela to get through, but it's done it once. It's going to try and do it again.
Another crit flamethrower, maybe? I'm not sure. That could be in the cards again today. But Celesteela, for now, really needs to get that Leech Seed going, get the double Leech Seed, continue to cycle through those Protects, and hope that it's going to be able to whittle down some of these Pokemon.
That's a whole lot to ask out of this Celesteela, particularly with the Torkoal much healthier, the Dusclops available to kind of help out a little bit more here, I think. Not helping out this turn.
Yeah, Dusclops gets paralyzed here. Finally, one of the first turns we're actually going to see that paralysis actually matter. Celesteela gets a chance to go for the Leech Seed, but not before that Torkoal ended up going for Yawn, and there's no electric terrain to be able to protect this Celesteela anymore.
Nothing to save Celesteela from the Yawn. And that does mean that at the end of the next turn, these Protect cycling turns just aren't available. Yes, you're recovering every single turn, but for your troubles, you're getting hit by 2 moves every single time. So the Celesteela's endgame does, I think, rely once again on an early wake up, and it's free of bind, so it's not getting that little bit of residual damage, but it's just going to use up a Protect just before it falls asleep, and just try and hope that not enough damage can come through right before it heads off for a nap, and Torkoal and Dusclops just get to wail on it for the rest of the game.
Yeah, Nightshades, Burning Jealousy. Nick's definitely going on the offensive here to be able to try to knock out the Celesteal. And now you did see the timer pop up that shows that there are 3 minutes left in this game, which will start to whittle down based on, animation length as well as just the inputs that these players decide to go for in these next couple of turns. But Trick Room is over. Celesteal is asleep. This isn't looking good. Torkoal might be in range of a flamethrower knockout here, but it's taking a lot of damage before.
It needs to stay asleep for, I think, 2 turns. Should be enough to do it. And don't forget, the Dusclops can also heal up with the Pain Spit. Kind of the downside of this Celestealer being at full health, because of all the recovery it's getting, is there's actually more health available for Dusclops to start sharing between the two of them. So Dusclops is definitely going to try and take advantage of that at some point. Or just understanding the amount of health available, the amount of health or damage that Burning Jealousy can do. Just making sure you get those consistent 50s down off the Nightshade. Celestealer, we'll be making sure it's sleeping this turn, as Torkoal says, no, I'm not letting you do what you did to me last game. Doing well over half there. If Celestealer doesn't wake up the next turn, it's done for.
Oh, and even still, though, getting a chance to go for Trick Room once again, that means that Torkoal is going to be pretty fast on the field. And even though Celesteal is going to be restoring health from its leftovers, as well as the Leech Seed that's on the field from both Dusclops and Torkoal, you kind of have to go for the Protect here. Or, even still, the timer's whittling down.
The combination of Nightshade and being able to just land another Burning Jealousy should definitely... It's going to be close, I think, but I didn't catch the exact numbers there on the Burning Jealousy damage, but you've got to wake up. It doesn't matter if Celestealer doesn't wake up in this turn. There's so many ways that Nick can wrap up this game with 60 seconds left. Celestealer does! Oh my goodness, Celestealer doesn't like staying asleep.
Dusclops is paralyzed. What?
Oh my word. Okay, well the sunlight's faded, so the Burning Jealousy damage is going to be down now. And obviously we have to go through a vast amount of recovery and such between these games. And with the timer going down, I mean, don't forget, Nick still has 2 Pokemon on the field.
Yeah.
I thought we were just going to see the game wrapped up. I didn't think Celestealer would get that short term there. But, making sure that... obviously, the animations are still going. There's a lot of them to work through, and he doesn't need the knockout. I thought he was just going to be able to get it the last turn.
Oh, wow. Could just go for the double Protect here. Torkoal's going to get knocked out, and then the health pool is definitely going to be in the Celesteal's favor, but the battle is going to end soon.
Yeah, I mean, Nick in no rush at all to wrap this one up. Just being able to say, I've forced Celestealer into a tough position. There it is. No seconds remaining until the battle ends. Both trainers going the distance in this game.
Wow. This game, this set, Adam, this entire set, I feel like both of these players really feel the pressure of being in the loser's bracket and definitely want to make sure that they can bring themselves forward. But an exciting way to end both game 1 and game number 2. It really felt like it came down to the wire. Even if there was just one more turn left, this could have been a whole different story for this game number 2. Just like how it felt like it could have been a whole different story in game number 1.
I mean, a completely different endgame. It looked like the Celestealer was going to get knocked out. It then manages to wake up, but then, yes, it bought time for itself. But because of the way that the game was and the extra Pokemon there for Nick, does mean he wins the game, and just taking it all the way on the timer, saying, yeah, you need more time to whittle me down and slow this game down like that. You don't have enough time to play out that full Celestealer endgame that you may want to. And of course, like you said, if you'd have just managed to get one knockout in there, could have been a lot different. But Celestealer needs so much time to set up.
Yeah, so much time. And maybe... getting the Protect off was great, but maybe going for a knockout there could have been a little bit different. But who's really to say? We are now tied up a game apiece in this set between Nick and Juan, and now we're about to find out who's going to be able to move forward in the loser's bracket when we enter into this game number 3. It all comes down to this: another slow, very decisive, very meticulous end game for both of these players, where we're going to see Nick switch it up again. It's going to be Grimmsnarl and Glastrier, and Entei and Raichu now coming out for Juan. Interesting that we have seen different approaches to all 3 of these games from these players so far.
Well, the Raichu Entei is a copy over from game number 2 from Juan, and I like that. And I do like the Grimmsnarl and Glastrier combo as well. There's no shock that Nick just leads with Grimmsnarl and sets up that way by saying, you know what, I want Grimmsnarl to set up the screens, and that has been super problematic. I mean, there's so many attacks you think, oh, that could be a knockout, that just aren't because of Reflect and Light Screen, and that's been really, really big for Nick throughout this set. But once again, Juan immediately going on the offensive with his Dynamax, not messing around in this one in the slightest. And another Pokemon, I think we've seen, this might be the 4th different option we've seen from his team going for the Dynamax, as it is the Entei this time. So I know we've seen Kingdra, Politoed, and of course Raichu last game, showing how versatile this team is.
Yeah, I really still think that Raichu choice was so fun to watch last game, but it's going to be a double protect coming out from Nick, just playing it a little bit safe here, just to see what's going to happen, and also to make sure that that fake out isn't going to be too detrimental to this very first turn. But Entei goes for the Max Flare here, right into the Glastrier. That did protect, taking about a quarter damage, but most importantly setting up the Sun for a potential Max Flare next turn.
Whatever Max Flare lands is going to hurt wherever it hits, even with the help of something like the Grimmsnarl setting up the screens or the reflects. You know, we refer to them as screen, but it's a light screen and a reflect. You just got to make sure you use the right one at the right time. Facing down this Entei, you probably want to try and set that up. With a reflect, Nick does not want Glastrier to take that hit. A very easy switch out for him to make.
Yeah, very good switch out there as the reflect comes through from Grimmsnarl just to be able to help against these physical moves. As Raichu goes for the Volt Switch here onto Torkoal. That does quite a bit of damage there. And we get a chance to kind of see what Juan has brought to the rest of this battle, which is going to be that Politoed and that Celesteela waiting in the back. But it's the Celesteela that gets chosen to be brought out onto the field. Entei goes for another Max Flare here into the Torkoal that was the Glastrier. Brings it to half. Feel like the Volt Switch almost did more than that.
Oh, absolutely. And the Torkoal, a fantastic switch in there for Nick. Does get its Citrus Berry activated nice and early though. And of the 2 turns that we've had of this Entei's Dynamax already, both of them have been pretty underwhelming, really. Not quite getting exactly where he wants to go. And setting up the Sun, not such a bad thing. It would have helped against the Glastrier, but the Torkoal coming in wants Sun anyway and is able to play very wisely around that. While he's focusing down this Torkoal, the Grimmsnarl is setting up the screens and making the game very, very difficult for Juan.
Yeah, I mean, Juan just wants to try to get out as much damage as possible, but the screens really are putting a stopper in that game plan.
You can't get one-hit knockouts with Reflect and Light Screen put into play. It's just not an option anymore.
Yeah, even with the Max Rock Vault that's coming through, you definitely needed the chip damage from the Volt Switch, as Politoed's going to come back in, reset the weather once again, and I feel like this puts Nick into a position now, too, where if you really want to have control of the weather, you're going to have to bring out this Torkoal. But Light Screen now coming out from Grimmsnarl just to, make sure that both of those screens are going to be set up, as Entei goes for the Max Rock Vault, and Torkoal here is going to have to take the whole thing. But look at how well those screens have protected that Torkoal.
Yeah, there's the Reflect, showing why it's so valuable. Yes, there'll be a little bit of residual damage now from the Sandstorm. That is all. I would like to point out all 4 weathers that we have seen across the course of this set. That is going to be a full combination of sun, rain, hail, and sand going off. It's not something you usually get across the whole set.
No.
There's the completionist stream. All 4 as Entei's Dynamax ends with 0 knockouts.
Yeah, no knockouts just yet. And a potential here to just start getting that Celesteela set up, I feel like, and maybe hopefully knocking out the Torkoal. But Nick still, if they really want control of this weather or try to get this maybe Trick Room going, gets a chance to potentially. I feel like it has to be Dusclops in the back if you've got Glastrier and Torkoal.
Absolutely. The Venusaur has again, the Venusaur just didn't do that much, and obviously couldn't do anything to the Celesteela, and that's an endgame that I think Nick is very well aware of after what happened in game number 1 in particular. He's just going to play around that. It looks like both trainers very cognizant of the fact that weather control is super important here. just making sure that they switch around and get perfect board positions when they need them. Confirmation though on your prediction, Dusclops is the 4th Pokemon for Nick.
Aha! So maybe you get a chance to get that Trick Room set up, but Entei goes for the Stone Edge here, and Torkoal actually going down very early in this game, number 3.
Yeah, Torkoal just taken out. One of the potential kind of Trick Room sweepers knocked out, and that's really what the Entei is fantastic at doing. Yes, it took a long time. It took 2 max moves and a Stone Edge and a Volt Switch to do it.
Yeah.
So a lot of commitment there, but most importantly, that Torkoal was one of the answers to the Celesteela, and that's already gone. This Glastrier is coming in, likely going to be the Dynamax candidate for Nick here, and it's just trying its best really to keep on going. So it's already taken a little bit of damage, but it does have its screen set up. This Dusclops can help it out, and Juan may have to just kind of let that happen and try and set up a long-term endgame of his own.
Long-term endgame happened in games 1 and game number 2, and game 1 was a success for Juan. It could have been a little bit differently in that game number 2 even still, and so I'd call that a pretty good success as well. So hoping in this game number 3 that for Juan's sake they will be able to get the Celesteela kind of set up here with those Leech Seeds, with those Protects, cycling through with the leftovers as well to just really keep it safe, especially now that that big threat of the Torkoal is just gone. But Nick gets the chance to use that Dynamax, and this is where we could really see the tides turn in his favor.
I wonder if this Dynamax is going to be a little more valuable than Juan's Dynamax. Not getting any knockouts was a little bit disappointing, even though we've seen a new Dynamaxer from his team. But the Glastrier does need to kind of try and level up the Pokemon count as soon as possible. Entei's Sacred Firing into the Dusclops there. Maybe trying to remove that in advance. But yeah, Celesteela's just going to do its thing. It's going to start setting up this end game. It's not always the most thrilling way to do that, but it's certainly something that's very important as this Entei takes the Max Knuckle like a champ, if I'm honest.
Yeah, that's going to be a pretty tanky Entei there, just to be able to, eat that Max Knuckle, and Trick Room now getting set up by the Dusclops, so this Glastrier is going to be able to go much faster. Should be able to be... this Entei might be in knockout range now with that Max Knuckle boost.
It's, yeah, with the residual damage as well, I think is going to be there after the boost. It's a definite cleanup, and that's something the Glastrier probably wants. The Glastrier will get the Chilling Neigh boost as well, and just be able to really push on through that one. So the Glastrier, it would be 2 turns of its Dynamax attacking into Entei and leaving that Celesteela, but hey, look what happened at the end of last game, right? We left the Celesteela alone, and it wasn't able to swing that one completely. Entei seeing that play though, and being very smart about it, just keeping itself safe.
Yeah, but look, the bind comes through onto the Celesteela. It does 3 damage. Max Knuckle coming out from Glastrier now into the Entei. The Protect was very, very smart to be able to keep that Entei safe, but still get a little bit of damage through the Protect. Yeah, I'm just... 3 damage from bind, wow.
That's not what you need. More damage to take down the Celesteela, and that is probably not the answer to it. The Glastrier does, of course, get boost. The Dusclops is getting its attack boost. You never know.
Yeah,
you never know. It's Dusclops getting buff in this one, trying to say, look, Glastrier is not the only one pulling weight. I don't think it has anything that can actually take advantage of that, but it's getting the boost. You never know. You never know. We've seen some crazy stuff in this game. Let's not rule it out.
Yeah, we absolutely have. It's interesting the moveset that this Dusclops has, the damage it can do from Nightshade, Pain Split, and Bind. I don't think it can take advantage of that attack boost, but it's gonna try. It's gonna try.
We've seen all the moves. We've seen all the moves. It doesn't impact it. Unless there's been something crazy going on, it's not getting to take advantage. But Glastrier's in its last turn of Dynamax. I mean, let's not ignore the actual damage threat on Nick's side of the field. It's on its last turn of Dynamax. Definitely wants to get a Chilling Neigh set up, I think, and be able to capitalize with a huge setup. Hopefully he doesn't get caught by like a burn or anything again. But even after that, would still be doing huge amounts of damage. Just probably needs enough damage to try and overwhelm this Celesteela, I think.
Well, I feel like this is the problem, right? Celesteela's typing against Glastrier makes it really hard to actually hit it for a super effective move. I feel like So, I feel like the Celesteela for Juan is just set up in such a beautiful position where it can kind of just continue to sit on the field and kind of knowing that, like, Entei is going to be the threat that gets knocked out here, and then all the other Pokemon around it, so that it's going to be just the Celesteela that's left.
I want to know exactly how good Nick is at kind of gauging where he is on health bars, because that was the perfect amount of damage, by the way, from the Nightshade to get the knockout there on Entei. So that it feels sweet to feel the Dusclops to get a knockout like that. But Entei finally taken out. It's taken an absolute bruising, and then no knockouts for this Glastrier so far. I mean, the Glastrier 3 turns of Dynamax, no knockouts. Definitely not getting those chilling nays, and only 2 boosts so far from the Max Knuckles. So yes, it is definitely offensive, but it's going to be taking good amounts of residual damage every single turn. And yeah, look, it's Celesteela setting up for the end game.
Oh yeah. Just able to get back so much health from the leftovers and the Leech Seed. It's just super, super safe. And I don't know. I don't know how Nick gets through this, honestly.
It's going to be tough, and now this Raichu still being around actually buys a lot of time, I think. You know, you got to turn to Fake Out. You can Volt Switch and Fake Out again.
Yeah.
So you can actually buy even more time for your Celesteela by using these moves that disrupt your opponent. You don't have to be protecting every single turn, and then you're able to, you know, weave in extra little bits of damage that does speed up the game and maybe avoid that tricky situation that Juan found himself in last game, and being able to, you know, get caught short in the Pokemon count. He's at least level in the Pokemon count right now. They're 3-3, and that's a lot better when you're trying to play out these Celesteela endgames.
Yeah, we're leveling the playing field right now. It's definitely coming to a close. We're about to see some of those maybe final swing turns to be able to see who's going to actually take this game. But Glastrier protects. Just being able to read that Fake Out is going to happen, but Dusclops does go for a Pain Split into the Celesteela, bringing it pretty low. This is not where we've seen Celesteela be in the past to be able to kind of keep itself safe, and that Heavy Slam's not doing very much either.
No, it's not getting any damage. You ain't going to get Beast Boost trying like that. You know, you've got to do more damage if that's the way you want to play through the game. But you can take a good amount of damage. You've got your Leech Seed set up, and there's leftovers. Here we go. It's time, Rosemary, for another round of Celesteela recovers all of its health.
Oh man, I'd like to. I feel like I want to buy a vowel for like 2. Can I buy a vowel here? Celesteela doesn't have enough of them in its name. Bind now coming through just to be able to chip away at some of that health, but not enough. Celesteela is still pretty healthy.
No, absolutely not. I mean, Celesteela's a backup over half. Does have to be respectful of its opponents a little bit here, and you know, could try and swing this game very drastically. But the problem is like, all it needs to do is focus down this Glastrier. Because once the Glastrier is gone, the damage threat is just so limited, I think. We'll see exactly how it can get through this one. But the Glastrier is sitting on the field, you know, it's got its boosts a little bit earlier on. We'll see exactly how much it can do by landing a big attack with those. Yeah, Dusclops Pain Splitting the Raichu, actually.
Yeah, I guess, like, to be able to get as much health back as possible, right? Just to maybe take out the Raichu and maybe put Nick into this position where maybe I can outmatch you if it comes down to it once again with just having more Pokemon on the field. That worked in game number 2, and also the fact that the targeting happened the way that it did, it actually allowed Glastrier to get another Chilling Neigh boost.
Glastrier is setting up to just be able to try and get completely through this Celesteela, I think, in one big hit. That's something that it needs to do. So on the turn that Celesteela can't protect, for example, it's able to just land the full amount of damage and get it all the way there. But once again, Celesteela, you know, didn't take much damage in that turn at all. Only those bits of residual damage that hit first, and yeah, the health getting sapped is going to be a bit of a problem. The Dusclops is the only one able to really reliably recover here, and Celesteela looking way healthier than it was at the beginning of this turn. So, the bind. Don't forget, bringing it back down a little bit.
Don't forget.
There it is. The Reflect is finally gone.
Wow.
So that's actually a big deal for Juan, who maybe wants to land a big hit with this Celesteela. The Pokemon count isn't level right now, but the Reflect being gone, the Grimmsnarl is still available, by the way. Let's not forget that. Could reset that, but just has to be careful about potentially switching in. Juan down to his last two, but one of them is the well set up, well prepped Celesteela.
And you also have a Politoed on the field that can just go ahead and click some Muddy Waters to be able to hit both Pokemon for damage in the rain. And when there's no Torkoal left for Nick's side, it's just going to be raining the rest of this match. So, I'm really looking forward to how this ends, because I just feel like it's coming down to it. We're about to find a victor.
Yeah, I think this could be the decisive moment. As there it is, Muddy Water in the rain is just enough. I mean, this Dusclops has said, I can't take that. This Politoed has been saved so well, and while this Celesteela has been buying so much time, just by sitting on the field, being annoying, being bulky, recovering all the health, that literally created the perfect situation. And getting these Pokemon nice and low, too. That's really important to note, that the Pokemon were brought so low by these constant Leech Seed sappings that it meant that when Politoed came in, yes, there was a light screen up, but everything was so low.
Yeah.
It had complete control of the weather and was just able to do it. So, down to his last Pokemon, Nick decides, nah, I'm not even going to make Grimmsnarl go through.